Heyo, Omni-Dogs and Omni-Kittens. It's Omni-Dog here. How's it going? Thanks for tuning in. What I have going on today is, for some of you out there, you may be wondering, how do I read the Sandman Universe books? So this is sort of a guide to the Sandman Universe books, like The Dreaming. Can't really see that well. The Dreaming. And House of Whispers, and Books of Magic, which isn't finished yet. Hellblazer, which is in the Sandman universe. I have thoughts on that. And Lucifer is in the Sandman universe. And I'm not sure that that's done. But we'll get to that when I get to that. First question people are going to ask, do I have to know about Sandman to enjoy these books? Do I have to have read the first Books of Magic? Okay, let's take them one at a time. The first series is called The Dreaming. And there are 3 books. And this is Dora, who ends up being the major character. There are 3 books. They take place in the dreaming, in the waking world, interdimensionally, but a lot of it's in the dreaming. So it would be hard for you to go into these books cold without knowing something of the Sandman. And I guess you could Wikipedia them, but I think it'd be a richer experience if you knew what the dreaming was, the dream world, where Morpheus was. It's now ruled by Daniel. So to me, you do need to have Sandman knowledge for the dreaming. House of Whispers is a new concept in that besides the House of Mystery and the House of Secrets, there is now the House of Whispers and the House of Watchers. If you know that, it deals with Urzuli, who is, this is a new kind of pantheon that I haven't seen before, and that's African American pantheon. So there's a lot of new gods. Well, actually, there's tons of gods in this whole thing that I haven't heard of before. So this is interesting. It has a little bit to do with the Sandman, just because the whole concept of the dreaming is that Daniel wants to, and this is explained in several of the books. There's like a preview in several of the books. The Dreaming, House of Whispers, Lucifer, and the Books of Magic. That gives a little preview of each of those first 4 books. And in one of those previews, Daniel, the ruler of the dreaming, leaves. He wants to experience sort of what it's like to be a human, fall in love. So he bails on the dreaming, and the dreaming starts to fall apart without him. And the House of Whispers ends up in the dreaming because her house is like a houseboat, like a big boat, and it ends up on the shores of the dreaming. I think you can get away without knowing a lot about the Sandman's world, or Morpheus's world, Craig's world, whatever his name is. Now I'm blanking on what his name is. Daniel, thank you. You don't need to know about a lot of the Sandman universe to get into House of Whispers. Now, Books of Magic deals tangential on the side of the dreaming, but it doesn't have much to do with the dreaming. It's Timothy Hunter, and he is bouncing off whatever the latest incarnation of the books of magic has been. I know there's an omnibus coming out that dealt with, now there were 4 original books of magic. Oh no, there was 1 book of magic with 4 issues in it. And there's going to be a deluxe, there's going to be an omnibus coming out of the series that followed it. So you don't need dreaming experience, but you do need books of magic experience to understand and follow this. I'm going to be giving you my opinion on all these in a second. Hellblazer is in this universe. John Constantine appears in several of these books, so that's why I assume this is why he's in the Sandman universe. It would help you understand Hellblazer, John Constantine, if you had read Hellblazer before, because this sort of just drops you right in the middle of his coming out of an asylum and how he re-enters the world. You should have some Constantine knowledge to get this. Lucifer, this bounces out of Sandman, because this is where the concept of Lucifer Morningstar got bored with hell and just left. And 2 of the angels from the Silver City up in heaven get assigned to guard hell. And Lucifer, there are 2 omnis out of Lucifer. This is a bit different version of Lucifer. You don't need to know the dreaming, but you should probably have a little bit of Lucifer knowledge. But I don't want anyone to not read this. And you'll see why when I talk about it. So I think you can, once we go over this, I'll figure it out in my head if you can go read this cold. And by the way, he's drawn to look exactly like David Bowie. It's really cool. So let's go over the guide to what these books are like to read. The dreaming, I even took notes on this, so I will be referring to them. Dreaming is a sort of the centerpiece of this universe. The preview shared in all the books show that Daniel's left, as I said. The dream world is falling apart. The art in this series is actually really quite good. I like it a lot. Let's see, make sure I don't get any glare on these pictures. But the dream world starts to fall apart, and this is where they are trying to either find a new ruler, or as the world falls apart, try and find someplace else to live. So actually, you can see Urzuli's boat here that has come upon the shore. A lot of the old characters are in there, Merv Pumpkinhead and a lot of the other old characters. This book by Simon Spurrier, no surprise, really good. Really, really good. Because it has several adventures that are going on at one, that crisscross through each other. And Dora, she in this? Yeah, Dora is up here. She looks kind of like a fairy and is fairly level-headed, but then her emotions can turn her into literally a monster. And she's the centerpiece of this book. These books, all 3 of them. She doesn't have a soul, and she wants to know. She can't remember how she lost her soul. She doesn't fit in anywhere. Morpheus gave her haven there in the dream world, but she wants to know why she doesn't have a soul and why she feels the way she does. And her ability is that she can create doors to anywhere. Dora. I just got it. Here she is in major action right here on these panels right here. She wants to know, that's her main focus in this story, and that's really sort of the meat of the book, is who made her not believe in herself. Somebody told her she wasn't real, and she wants to find out who. And it takes her through a lot of interesting journeys throughout all the 3 books. She is a great character. Now, I haven't read Sandman in a long time. I haven't read books of magic, or I haven't read anything recently, really. So Dora could have existed. I just don't remember. She is excellent in this book. She is such a kick-ass, whatever she is. There's an especially great scene, or scenes in this book, where she does some amazing outwitting of demons and gods. And it's all in her quest to find out who she really is. She has like a demon lover who gets taken down. Okay, wait a minute. Maybe it's in book 2 where she has the amazing chess match. Or the game, whatever the game is. There's so much good Dora stuff in this. She ends up at the end of the world, at the world's end, where stories are currency in book 2. And well, I don't want to give too much away, but world's end is where stories are currency, it says in the book, and she outwits them there, but I don't want to give too much away. And I think where she plays the game, in this book. And I love Cy Spurrier. I love his imagination, that he thinks of an impossible situation that I don't see how there's a way out, but Dora figures it out. It's genuinely impossible. And while this is happening, an artificial intelligence has taken over the dream world and is trying to, after this other guy tried to, Judge Gallows tried to take over by trying to murder everybody. This artificial intelligence shows up and tries to do the job of Daniel or Morpheus would have done. And that's sort of the clue that Dora needs, this artificial intelligence. I don't want to give much more away than that, other than to say that Cy Spurrier is amazing. These books are worth it, whether you've liked or disliked Sandman in the past. It's up to you. These books are great. Cy Spurrier writes magically, and the art is really good. This gets a solid A from me, if that's the grading system. I haven't come up with a better one, so A on The Dreaming. It needs to be read. Then we go into House of Whispers, which is a whole new concept, that there's a new house. It starts in New Orleans, dealing with a voodoo god. Her name's Azruli, goddess, and she has something happen that takes her boat and not kingdom, but she gets a disease, gets set loose by these 2 women, and it leaves all her believers and everybody she comes in contact with on Earth like just empty shells of themselves, and their souls have all gone to the dreaming. And you are introduced to a lot of interesting, a pantheon of interesting gods and creatures and levels of their version of hell. She's got to find her she's got to find her boat because her husband, she has 3 husbands, one of them is like woven into the boat. So she needs to find it. And here she is with the Crocodile King guy. And the only god I recognized was Anansi, and he is the trickster, and he's the one that gets hold of the House of Watchers, who Aesop, from Aesop's Fables, is in charge of. I like this book a lot. We're also reintroduced to the Corinthian, the ultimate nightmare, and of course he's awful, and Papa Midnight is in this book, playing a major role. Azruli possesses a cat that ends up playing a major role in book 3. These are 3 books and done. The art is fun and powerful and very interesting. I liked it a lot. Of where a lot of it, she's speaking French. I guess she's Creole, Voodoo from New Orleans. She's got that French kind of thing going on. My only issue was the art. This wasn't my favorite art. Art's very subjective. You might like the art, but the art wasn't so much to not my taste. I worded that sentence very poorly. I'm sorry. But it didn't take me out of the story. I give this book a solid B+. I found it really interesting. I'm keeping it because I can see myself reading this again. Here's a nice David Mack cover to book 3. So she's got to fix her realm because the Corinthian, here's John Constantine in it when she possesses the cat and talks to Papa Midnight. So she's got to set things right, get her boat back to her realm, deal with the Corinthian and several other things. And I think this is really well done, and I liked it a lot. I give it a solid B+. So that's the House of Whispers. Here's the book where Anansi is, book 2, where he is introduced. There's lots of tricksters in that book, besides Anansi. Books of Magic can stand on its own as a story. If you know who Tim Hunter is, he's born to be the most powerful magician in the world. He's still a young man in these books. Still is a pretty good kid. He hasn't, if you read the original books of magic, you know that he has an opportunity in a possible future to become a wicked evil magician and destroy the world. And Constantine has always been present at that moment because he's always wishing he had killed Tim Hunter back before it had happened. And that's a scene where Tim Hunter's mopping up the JLA with like one finger. The art is fine in this book. The story, now it's unfinished. I assume there's going to be a book 3 because it didn't. It ended on a cliffhanger. So, but I really didn't care, and I love Tim Hunter in Books of Magic. I'm getting that omnibus, and I love the original. I liked the comic book that followed it up. The original, I have that in deluxe. I love that book, but I never really cared about Tim in this book. His mom could be part of an evil cult. His dad has been put into some kind of walking coma that Timothy Hunter manages to snatch him out of. But maybe I need book 3 to wrap things up and make it interesting. But this book, it did have an interesting trip through the land of fairy, which I liked. because I like the Fairy Queen, Titania, Titiana, however you, I'm sure somebody in the notes, I'm sure some viewer will write it and tell me how to pronounce Titania, Titiana, Titanium, Magneto and Titanium Man. But I don't know. This book just didn't do it for me. I give it a C. You can read it if you want. It's not going to hurt you if you don't read it. The only reason I would keep these is I might get book 3 to see how it finishes, or I might not care. I'm not sure yet. The art's fine. We come to the maddening story of Hellblazer now, written awesomely by Cy Spurrier. Of course, it's the best Sandman since issue 300 ended many years ago, when they struggled in DC Rebirth. They struggled in New 52. DC did. Whoever they assigned him to. Well, here he is talking to Tim Hunter now. So it does weave. There is a weave in all these books. Nobody really had no writer, and they had some good writers on him. None of them really got his voice. Cy Spurrier nailed it, and it got cut off after issue 12. And I think there's 12 issues in a one-shot. So at best, we're going to get one more trade of this. Freaking DC, that is such a crime. Cy Spurrier, they finally find a voice for Hellblazer, and they cut him off. Why should you read a book that's only going to be 2 books and then canceled? Because they're great. I haven't read the second book, but I can already tell you it's going to be great because it's Cy Spurrier, and he knows how to write this kind of fantasy. John Constantine awakens. Somehow he's in an asylum. He awakens from how he was ever put in there, meets a future version of himself, and gets himself in a pickle, meets a future version of himself, and has to give that self his soul. That's really cool. And that plays a big part. You see, and the guy's older. It's older John Constantine. And you see him throughout the book. And John finds himself stuck in a couple of 2 main plot points. One is a street gang that is run by a sort of street mage. He has magic powers, but he needs Constantine to help him. And they abduct him here to get him. This guy doesn't mess around. He doesn't have powers as strong as Constantine, but he wants Constantine's help in this war. And then connected to this, there are a lot of murders that are happening, and Constantine notices something about them that are similar, and the art is great. I really like the art a lot. Cy Spurrier has written Constantine perfectly, and he Constantine finds himself not in charge of, but sort of buddying up with a young kid from the street who is mute, has a chalkboard that he writes on. I think he's deaf because John has to communicate to him through sign language. And he's in this gang. And John wants him out of the gang because he's a good guy. So that's one of John's big concerns, helping that mage, helping him in John's own way, getting that kid out of trouble. And then he runs into, this guy's kind of a groovy mage who's taken over Constantine's gig while John Constantine has been missing. He's a groovy, natural dude who is wanting to turn over his powers back to John Constantine, and Constantine. It's kind of funny. Constantine deals with him in a funny sort of way, and then at the end there is a racist magician who has been sitting in the park creating murders and mayhem, and Constantine has to face him down. And I've left out about 7 different things that are interesting besides that. You have to get this. It's an A+. It is so good. It's Hellblazer. Get the second trade when it comes out, and just be so glad that at least for a moment we got a good Hellblazer. And then we come upon the last book, and that is Lucifer. The first book, first of all, who wrote this? Dan Waters did a great job. I'm going to just say right from the beginning, here are these previews that happen at the beginning, Books of Magic and House of Whispers, and the Dreaming and stuff that sort of give you a clue as to what's going to happen in the books. But Lucifer finds himself, well, he actually can't find himself. He's got a huge beard, is bloodied and broken, and is nothing like himself. He's got a mission. He doesn't act like Lucifer, and I had to read this twice. I'll be honest with you. I had to read this twice before I figured out how awesomely it was put together. There's also a private detective that is involved in this who's trying to save his wife, and he's involved with another guy that's in this who is not a good guy. But this is so worth it. Here's what Lucifer looks like. It's told in flashbacks. It's like 2 stories in one, and it's why I had to read it twice for me to figure it out. But it's brilliant once you finally figure it out. Lucifer has a son. You see, let me see if I can get the David Bowie version of Lucifer here. Lucifer has a son, and I believe it... what's her name? Sycorax. That is who he had the son with. She was an all-powerful... she was a goddess and a witch on her own. Now where's David Bowie? Okay, see, here's where you can get tripped up, because here's old scraggly beard weird Lucifer on this page, and then here he is with his son on this page, and you're like, what the heck? And then you figure out that it's told in flashbacks. So here's a good picture of him looking like David Bowie. This is how he's presented through the book, and he looks really cool in all his incarnations. So this is definitely a well-written but complex tale. Don't let that set you back. It's worth it. Just keep reading, and you'll understand it. The way Lucifer wants to set things right is by reuniting his son with his dying ex-wife, goddess, whatever Sycorax was. And there's also a war in heaven. Not war in heaven, but a war between him and heaven starts. The LA police officer story is in there. It's kind of interesting. It's sort of secondary to everything else. But his son, Lucifer's son, wants to, Lucifer wants to get his son back, and he thinks, with his wife, and he thinks that'll make things straight. And his son is, I'm blocking on his name, of course. Did I write his damn son's name down? Oh, what's your name? I'll remember it, and I'll tell you here in a second. But he, that's what the first part of the story is the reunification of the son with the wife. And the son, the reason why I have to remember the son's name is because he's throughout all 3 books. And he's a very important character, and I am totally blocking on his name, which shows you how, what a professional I am. This is where the story splits, right here. And well, I'll figure it out. The Mazikeen is reintroduced, and she also goes through some changes herself. She's been Lucifer's helpmate throughout the centuries. She's got half a face. You can barely understand her, but something changes that. And the son's name is Caliban. Thank you. So that was the story in this one. I'm going a little long. I hope I haven't lost everybody, because I gotta get you to read Lucifer. It's an A+ book. Now in this one, called The Divine Tragedy, this is number 2. This is where he wants to reunite. This is where he gets to meet up with his wife, but first he knows his wife is dying. So he goes to the various pantheons so that her soul doesn't have to go to hell. It can go rest in Zeus's pantheon, the Greek, the Olympian, the Norse mythology pantheon. Any place but hell. He's trying to negotiate a power, a place for her to rest. And of course she doesn't. She's extremely upset about this. She does not need Lucifer's help in any way, but he's forcing everything upon her. And she fights back, and Lucifer takes his lumps. And this book is just simply wonderful. It is so good. You have to get it. You have to read all 3 of these, because it is Dan Waters does such a good job on this, and I really like the art too. And Caliban has wanted to see his mother forever, and he's lived forever. And this is where there's a gathering of witches. We see Thessaly, who had her own series a number of years back. And there's a gathering of witches to celebrate the life of Sycorax before she passes on. And that's a really cool part of the story too. And the third story is called The Wild Hunt, where throughout all the universes, all of the gods, every, I don't know, millennia, every 3 or 4 centuries, gather to kill, chase and kill, excuse me, chase and kill this god, this hunted god. There is a god of all things that are hunted, and they gather to chase down this god and kill it, and that is supposed to keep the universe from killing itself. Chasing down this hunted god is a way of releasing all the poison that has been built up between all the various living beings throughout the universe, and he gets tricked into by John Constantine into knowing, finding out that he's part of a prophecy. Lucifer is. Lucifer originally was part of the hunt, and he's prophesied to be a part of it again, so he wants to save the god of the hunt. And it turns out it's just this oldish woman in the, I don't know, UK countryside somewhere that all of a sudden grows antlers and becomes the goddess of the hunt. And everybody's trying to kill her, from Achilles to Odin to all these other four horsemen that are ready to kill her. And Lucifer's trying to save her, to beat the prophecy and let himself free of it. This book is great. All three of these books are great. I didn't want to give too much away in any of these. I keep saying everything's great. I'm just trying to get you to want to read them because they are so worth it. Lucifer and Hellblazer are both A+. Books of Magic is a C. House of Whispers, solid B+, and I think I gave an A to The Dreaming. There you have it. It's possible I missed some things. These are written on a... They're certainly not written as comic books usually are, towards maybe a 6th grade reading level. This is like scholarly stuff practically, and so you need to commit to it. You can't just read it like an issue a day and go, whatever. You need to really get into Lucifer to really enjoy it. And same with all the books. They are kind of a level above House of Whispers, The Dreaming, and of course Hellblazer. They're all a level above typical comic book superhero books. So I would urge you to hunt these down. They're not out of print or anything. Hunt them down and read them, and let me know what you think. And I hope this helped. Please give me a like and subscribe, and feel free to leave a comment. And if I've gotten anything wrong, it's possible, because these are complex books. You can correct me, but try and be gentle about it, okay? I don't need anybody coming at me on the internet, so just be gentle. Hats off to all the great writers, though, because these are great books. So this is OmniDog saying peace and love, peace and love.